been sitting on my shelf for literally like I think 4 years now. Hey guys, it's Tahira, and today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So this tag is one of my favorites to film every year. I think I've been doing it for the past 2 or 3 years, I don't really remember, but it's always one of my favorite videos to film every year because it's a great way, like in halfway through the year, to like reflect on your reading that you've done for the past 6 months. I've read 29 books and my Goodreads goal is 60 books, so I'm basically literally on track right now. I think I'm actually 1 book ahead, which I haven't been ahead in a really long time, but I'm pretty on track for reading 60 books this year, but I don't know if that's gonna work out because college is starting soon for me in August, so I don't know how much reading I'm gonna get done later this year. But so far so good. I'm on track and I'm happy with that. Anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started with the tag, and the first question is best book you've read so far in 2020. So I actually have 2 picks for this year because I really could not pick. The first pick is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, and the second one is Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. I love these books so much. This is Sarah J Maas's new book. This is the first in a new adult fantasy series by Sarah J Maas. And I just loved it so much. Like, I know it's long, but I think that I love this book so much. It was so emotional, and it was just one of the most fun I've had reading a book in a really long time. But of course, Queen Cassandra Clare, she is one of my favorite authors, and I think that the main cast of characters in this book is one of my favorites out of all the Shadowhunter books. I feel like it's a bigger cast than normal, than her other series, but I love them so much, like Cordelia and James and Matthew and Anna, they're all just such great characters, and I don't know. They're both so good, and I really cannot pick, so I'm not gonna torture myself to pick. I'm just gonna say both of them. The next question is the best sequel you've read so far in 2020, and for this one I'm gonna go with Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. So Wondersmith is the sequel to Nevermore, which I read last year, one of my favorites of last year, and I just love this series so much. It is a middle grade fantasy novel. If you don't know, the first book follows this girl named Morgan Crow, and she was born on the last day of an age. So basically this world is to have ages that last from, I think it was about 10 to 15 years. And she was born on the last day of an age, so which is the day is called Eventide, and which is the unluckiest day of the age, and she was cursed to die on the next Eventide that will come, and the Eventide comes, but she does not die. Instead, she's taken away to this magical land called Nevermore, where she is thrown into this whole other wonder society, and she has to finish these trials to try to get into the society. And this was the sequel. It follows a lot more shenanigans with Morgan and the whole cast, and this is one of my favorite books. It's just so fun, and all the characters are so lovable, and I haven't read a middle grade in a long while, and I usually don't read middle grade, but this is by far one of my favorites. It's just so precious and cute and magical, and I just love it so much. The next prompt is a new release you haven't read yet but you really want to, and for this one I'm going with Love Boat Taipei by Abigail Wen. I've heard really great things about Love Boat Taipei. This follows a girl named Ever Wong, who is sent to Taiwan for this immersion program that her parents send her away for a summer, and she's kind of expecting this strict program, but when she goes there she actually realizes that it's not what it seems to be, and it's not what her parents think it is. It's nicknamed Love Boat, and it's basically like there's no parents, no adult supervision, so it's basically like a party, non-stop party, and she learns more about other people that are there as well as herself. I'm really excited to read this, and I hope to get to it soon, and I'm definitely will be picking it up. The fourth prompt is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I'm gonna go with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Victoria Schwab. Actually, I think it might be V.E. Schwab because I think this is adult, but I'm so excited for this. I think it follows a girl who makes the deal with the devil to live forever, but she's forgotten by anyone she meets, so there's a negative aspect to that deal. Also, A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir, the last book of the Ember in the Ashes series, is also coming out at the end of the year, so those are 2 books that I'm really excited for. The fifth prompt is biggest disappointment, and for this one I'm going to be going with Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. This is probably my lowest rating of the year. I gave this 2.5 stars, and as much as I was really looking forward to it, it is a fantasy novel by Adam Severa, and if you don't know, he's usually known for writing contemporary. He has really amazing contemporary books, but this was his first like delve into the fantasy world. I just think some things could have been fleshed out more. It was actually pretty short for a fantasy novel. I think it was just around 300 pages, which is usually pretty short for fantasy, because in fantasy there's a lot of like world building you have to do and set up a lot of like, if there's a magic system you have to set that up. And I think one of the biggest criticisms that I've heard, and that I also agree with, is that there was not a lot of world building. You're kind of thrown into this world with no idea what the magical creatures are. You're not given much description of what they actually are and how the magic works. It definitely could have been fleshed out more if the book was longer. And I think, from what I remember, most of the book was dialogue, or a lot of it was dialogue, which is usually not the case in fantasy novels. I think it's because contemporary has a lot of dialogue, and maybe he was bringing that like aspect into his fantasy book, but I think that a little more world building and more fleshed out characters and action scenes and just the world in general could have benefited the book a lot. And as of right now, I don't know if I'm going to be picking up the sequel, but maybe I will. Maybe it will improve a lot. The next prompt is the biggest surprise, and for this one I'm going to be going with And I Darken by Kristen White. And I Darken is a fantasy novel during the Ottoman Empire, and it's a gender-bent retelling of Vlad the Impaler. And the reason this was a surprise is because I knew I would like it, but I was surprised at how much I really loved it. I love the writing style, I love the action, the world, everything. It was just such an amazing book, and that was why it was such a big surprise. Like, not that I was expecting it to be bad, like I wasn't expecting it to be a terrible book, but I was just surprised at how amazing it really was and how much I really liked it. The next prompt is favorite new author, which could be new to you or a debut author, and for this one I'm going to be going with Courtney Summers, who wrote Sadie. Sadie was one of my favorite. I loved Sadie so much. It's a really great murder mystery, I guess, and I know that Courtney Summers has written a lot of other books before Sadie, but this was the first book that I read from Courtney Summers, and I definitely want to pick up more of her books after reading Sadie, because I really loved Sadie so much. If you didn't know, Sadie follows this girl named Sadie. It follows this girl named Sadie who is out running, who ran away from her home to look for her sister. So there's basically like two missing person story. One is Sadie's sister and one is Sadie herself. So this podcast personality, I guess, does a podcast to like delve deeper into their story and to find out where Sadie went. It's a mix of Sadie's perspective and the podcast itself, and I've heard the audiobook is really good because it like sounds like a real podcast as you're listening to it, which I think is really cool. I didn't listen to the podcast, but I think that if I want, I've never read a podcast or I've never heard an audiobook. Actually, I don't know. It's just some listening. It's just, I don't know. For some reason, my mind wanders a lot. But if I were to start reading an audiobook, I would definitely check this one out because it sounds really cool. The next prompt is newest fictional crush. And for this one, I actually don't have a lot of fictional crushes. My one and only would be Will Herondale, because he's just the best, and the closest I can get to Will Herondale without saying Will Herondale is saying James Herondale from Chain of Gold. Yeah, I kind of did a loop there. Like I still got like all the Herondales. I just love the Herondales so much. Like Lucy Herondale, James Herondale, they're all great. But yeah, definitely James Herondale, because he is like his father. He has the same hair, and he's like, you know, moral of the story, I love all Herondales. The next prompt is newest favorite character, and for this one I'm actually going with Lada from And I Darken. Lada is now one of my favorite characters of all time. She's just so ruthless and bloody and just so different from any other character I've ever read, which made me love her so much. She's just so cunning, and she just does what she wants, and that's just qualities that I haven't seen a lot in YA novels or YA fantasy novels. So yeah, that was definitely one of the biggest surprises when I was reading, was the main character, because I didn't realize like how ruthless she would be as she was, and that's why I love her. The next prompt is a book that made you cry, and if you don't know me, you know that I've never ever cried for a book or a movie. For some reason, like if it's a fantasy, or not a fantasy, if it's a fictional thing, I will not cry because I know that it's not real. Like if it was something in my personal life, I would cry, but I don't, something in my mind knows that it's fake and not real, so Yeah, but anyway, the closest I got to crying this year was actually when I was rereading A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I've actually read this, I think it was like last year or a couple years ago, but I read the movie tie-in edition, which it didn't have any of the pictures. But this has some of the haunting pictures and everything. And it's just, it adds a whole new level to the story, which I really loved. I just think the story is so sad. It follows this boy who is trying to deal with his mother who has cancer and like kind of letting her go, which is the saddest part at the end when he realizes that he has to let her go. But yeah, I haven't read a lot of totally sad books, but Monster Calls. Oh my god, I totally forgot, like Crescent City, when Danica and like all of Danica and Bryce's scenes at the end of the book just made me so sad and emotional, because like when Danica, like, okay, I can't say any spoilers, but like if you've read this book, you know what happens at the end and you know how sad it is, and it just, yeah. This book also brought me really close to tears. The next prompt is a book that made you happy, and for this one I'm for sure going with Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Heartstopper is a graphic novel following these two boys, and they are just the cutest thing. It follows when like they have a crush on each other, they're friends, and then they're eventually partners at the end. But it's just so cute and just so beautiful, and it's just such an adorable little story. Like if you want there's like not a ton of like bad stuff that happens. If you want a super light, fun, cute, very cute contemporary graphic novel, I would definitely recommend Heartstopper. The next prompt is a favorite book to film adaptation that you've seen this year, and I don't actually think a lot of like movie adaptations came out this year. I think, oh, actually the one that did came out this year was a sequel to All the Boys I've Loved Before, P.S. I Still Love You, and that wasn't my like, I like the original movies more, but one adaptation that I did see this year that obviously did not come out this year was Catching Fire, which is one of my favorite books and movie adaptations of all time, and one of my favorite like movies of all time in general, and it's just so well made. It's so close to the actual books, and I think it's so great. Like the acting, everything, just so amazing. I love that movie to death. Like out of all the Hunger Games movies, Catching Fire is like one of my favorites. The next prompt is favorite review that you've written or made a video about this year, and I actually didn't post a lot this year, so oops. I don't actually have any individual reviews this year, but I think I've done a couple wrap-ups, or maybe I haven't. I don't know. It would be so embarrassing if I didn't have any wrap-ups this year, but if I did have any wrap-ups, and those wrap-ups I guess are like my mini reviews of the books I read, but if I haven't. The next prompt is the most beautiful book that you've bought this year, and for this one I'm going with Crescent City, because as I was looking, just the artwork on this is absolutely gorgeous, and the cover isn't even my favorite part. My favorite part is the end pages, because this is actually the original artwork that the artist created, but they just manipulated it to create the red cover that is on the front, but the actual artwork is the end pages, and I just think it's so beautiful. And definitely the way the artist drew this whole scene, just everything is just so intricate and beautiful, and that's why this cover takes the cake for the beautiful. And the last prompt is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I have so many. As I said, Love Boat Taipei is definitely I want to get to very soon. There's also a lot of books that I have that I haven't picked up that I've had literally for years. Like The Nightingale, I haven't read. It's been so long. It's been sitting on my shelf for literally like I think 4 years now. If you can hear the kids in the background, I'm so sorry. My brother and his friends get so loud. Also, anyway, Night Film is another book that I've had for so long. King of Scars I've had for so long that I definitely need to get to. I definitely need to reread the Ember the Ashes series before the 4th book comes out. So yeah, definitely a lot of books that I either gotten this year that I need to get to, that have either been sitting on my shelf for 4 years that I need to get to. So there's always books that I need to get to, like at any point in time. Anyway, that is the mid-year book freakout tag. That was really fun. I love doing tags, even though I don't really do them much anymore. But yeah, let me know down below what is your favorite book that you read so far this year, as I would love to know. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!